Hey everyone, Jag Taggart 93 here with another comprehensive Quake map review. Today we're looking at Windaws June 2019 Quake 1 map, Barbican of Hell. Now this map is set up for deathmatch and single play and works with different skill settings. Skill 1, Skill 0, and Skill 2. There's no Nightmare skill setting, but that's okay. The hard mode, which is Skill 2, is actually pretty challenging, especially on its first go around. One of the biggest differences I found between Skill 2 and Skill 1 is actually in the progression, not so much the enemies. You see, if you play this on Skill 1, you're able to skip a small section of knights, and you will encounter a room of ogres very directly head on. However, in Skill 2, after getting the silver key, you're to go through the Hall of Knights and then take an elevator up to the room, where those two ogres are waiting for you. Now, approaching them in this fashion is much more demanding, and the player has to react much more quickly and return fire. You know, it's very tough engaging ogres when they have to drop on you like this. And indeed, that's really the case with this map in general, in that much of its difficulty isn't so much from the kind of enemies you'll encounter, or there's a good mix of challenging enemies, even on Skill 1, but really a lot of the challenge comes from the environment and how the environment shapes those encounters, which is done really well. Basic stuff, like after you turn a corner and see a group of zombies, if you got the grenade launcher, you know the easiest, most basic tactic to use here is just retreat back the corner and lob them around the corner, the grenades. Little basic things like that are done again and again, and knowing the environment and knowing the quirks of it really helps, and you realize real quick with this map that the environment was consciously made by the author to both be your enemy and your ally here. Now, fighting off the ogres at the very beginning of this map with a shotgun with a nearby nail trap and lava pool to negotiate is a pretty tricky demand. However, the environment's tight rooms and high walls are absolutely a godsend when taking on Vors and Shamblers. Using the environment is really what this map is all about, like I said, and I think that's why the Shamblers and Vors mostly don't go anywhere between Skill 1 and Skill 2. Now, normally when you skip skill levels, they would switch out a harder enemy subtype for another one. And there is some enemy switching, but no, here, no matter if it's normal or hard mode, the Shamblers, for the most part, that are in specific areas, stay where they are when you go to Skill 2. Same for the Vors as well. At the very beginning, you have a Vor that's guarding a golden key. But on Skill 1, placed with a Shambler. Now that I found very interesting, actually. Usually when you go down a skill level, you would change a harder enemy type, like a Vor, to something a lot easier, or still kind of in the wheelhouse. Here, the author went with a Shambler instead on Skill 1, which is still a hard enemy. It's a freaking Shambler. But I get why they did it. I get that the intention here is to make you use the environment for cover. And they realized that if they changed the enemy subtype to something like, say, I don't know, a Death Knight or a couple Scrags, that would change the fundamentals of what this author had in mind for this encounter. So I really like the attention here to the environment and combat. Now, the enemy placement overall, from what I can see here, is really close to excellent, but there are a few questions I do have. On Skill 3, there's a random Rottweiler that's with the ogres that ambush you at the very beginning near the nail trap. Now, I'm not exactly sure why. Here is the only Rottweiler in the entire map, and it doesn't really fit the theme, it just kind of sticks out. And again, it's a Rottweiler, it dies really quickly and really easily, especially it'll get tagged very likely by the stronger enemies near it, if not by the ogres, then by possibly the Scrags you might engage while combating these enemies. But yeah, no, it just seems just like it sticks out. If you need a skirmisher enemy, I would think just put in a knight there, but whatever, just kind of weird. Also, after a few playthroughs, I keep ending the map here with seeing that I'm missing one enemy and one secret. And for the life of me, I couldn't figure out where this enemy was. So I no-clipped around, and I think I found them. It's a Death Knight that's kept to the side in a off-map waiting room, waiting to teleport in. And I also, like I said, kept missing one secret room. So I'm thinking maybe this must be related somehow. I'm not finding the one secret, and the one secret will trigger this one Death Knight ambush. I don't know, just kind of weird. Also, on normal mode, I'd really reconsider having a Death Knight be the first enemy we encounter. Now, a Death Knight is definitely not the hardest enemy in Quake, but it takes bullets like a champ, especially from the sole weapon you start off with, the shotgun. And if you combine this with the fact that early on, one wrong step is a fatal plunge into lava, and yeah, you have a surprisingly challenging initial encounter for normal mode. I would consider just having a normal knight here that, dies with just 4 direct shots with the shotgun, which would just give us just enough time to appreciate the environment and what's being done here without overdoing it on normal mode. Again, not unfair by any means, but just a little questionable. Ammo is pretty scarce too on hard mode, but that's fitting, I suppose. Now, one fundamental map making trope that's repeated again and again in this map is player baiting with items. Now, this is a trope that, in my opinion, never gets old. I really appreciate when I see it. And here, yeah, you'll often come to a room, you'll see an item. However, if you get tunnel vision at this precious item or necessary item, like a key, and you forget to check corners, it'll bite you, right? You will see an essential item, and sometimes it'll cause a trap to spring. So, for example, there's one small room with a tower in the middle. Now, of course, experienced players know you got this little tower in the middle, so that's probably cover for an oncoming fight. And you see a switch with some goodies in front of it and an alcove. You're bracing, there's anticipation there. And yeah, and lo and behold, that is a bait for a trap, which brings a Shambler into the room along with a Death Knight. And again, I love it when it's done like that. Some map makers may think if you overuse it, it'll become mundane, it'll become annoying. But no, for me, I really appreciate when I see it. If it's done repeatedly, it tells me that the author is doing it on purpose, and every time I see a setup, there's that anticipation there. And it's a nice little wake-up call, too, to the player to take out, one of the more substantial guns, like a super nail gun if you got it, or a thunderbolt, and be ready for what's coming. So I absolutely love that kind of psychology and that kind of communication that happens between map maker and player. Now, lava is used throughout this map, and it never really goes away, which is good. It's oftentimes when there's a map set in like a volcano or a toxic waste facility, there'll be just one section with the hazard, and then that's it, which I always feel like kind of ruins the immersion a little bit. But here we have lava throughout the entire map, and it's apparent in the beginning when you gotta negotiate where the lava spots are and watch your footing as you're fighting those early enemies. And it comes up later on too with a platforming area. Now this platforming area is thankfully pretty brief. Well, I shouldn't say brief. It's substantial. It doesn't wear out its welcome. It's actually a welcome experience overall. It adds to the map, actually. It doesn't detract from it. It doesn't feel shoehorned in. The light combat that we do encounter here with the Scrags, and then later on skill 2, you have the zombie, and then you can lob a grenade at it and stuff. The combat there is pretty solid, and it's a very good section, actually. And very fair as well, so good stuff. Overall, Barbican of Hell is a capably put together map with decent aesthetics, good enemy placement, and excellent use of the environment as a gameplay enhancer. It does the fundamentals all really well. And what we end up here is a map that's pretty great. It's a 75% for me, and that's all I really have to say about it. Thank you all for watching. This is Jag Taggart 93 signing out. You have a good one.